Our group has decided to plan lessons for Year 1 Geography. The inquiry question we have chosen is how can we care for places? When viewing knowledge and understanding, the content descriptors state that the students are to learn natural, managed, and constructed features of places, their location, and how they change. They also look at how they can be cared for. By choosing the question, what are different features, we can link the lessons to the achievement standard for Year 1. When looking at prior knowledge, geography in the foundational year needed to be looked at. It is assumed that the students have already viewed reasons as to why some places are special to people and how they can generally be looked after. So that would include like picking up rubbish and learning how to recycle.
For the first lesson of the learning sequence, focusing on the natural, managed, and constructed features of places, rich activities will engage students in the questioning phase of the inquiry framework. The learning outcome will see students forming questions to explore the natural, managed, and constructed features by places. By asking questions such as, how can you tell if something is a constructed feature? What are some natural features that you see every day? And how do we need managed features in these places? The lesson will begin with students entering the classroom to discover a scattered array of pictures and words representing natural, managed, and constructed features placed around the room. Instructed to find and sort these cards into their respective categories, students approached the task with curiosity and enthusiasm. As students eagerly sort the cards, the teachers gain insight into their prior knowledge, enabling adjustments to be made to their lesson plan as needed. The main activities in the lesson involve the creation of word walls for the terms natural, managed, and constructed, as well as an interactive read aloud of you and me, our place. These activities serve to deepen students' understanding of subject-specific terminology used to describe the features of places. Through the creation of word walls, students construct a comprehensive and comprehension of these terms, which are essential for future lessons within the sequence. The interactive read aloud aligns with the cross-curriculum priority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives. The story's narrative utilises natural, managed, and constructed features to compare the setting with both past and present contexts, offering insights into the significance of these features from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives. As students engage with the story, they can identify these features within the narrative and recognise the importance of maintaining and nurturing them from cultural perspectives. To conclude, students will engage in a review of word walls, consolidating their understanding of the new vocabulary introduced during the lesson. Encouraging students to use these new terms, they will be prompted to incorporate them into their descriptions of their home or school environment. Additionally, students will revisit their initial word hunt activity and correct any mistakes that may have occurred with their newfound understanding of the terms. In the subsequent lesson of our learning sequence, we explore the research phase of the inquiry process, where students engage in data collection. This lesson integrates cross-curricular elements of mathematics by having students create tables that accurately represent the natural, managed, and constructed features of places. Through this lesson, students will deepen their understanding of features of places and enhance their data collection and representation skills. The lesson begins with the teacher utilising the whiteboard to display a map or photo of a familiar location to the students. Working collaboratively as a class, students will identify the natural, managed, and constructed features they observe within the image. The teacher will facilitate this discussion and clearly annotate each feature on the board as they are identified. For the main activity, students will be provided with a magazine and will be instructed to search through the pages to find pictorial examples of geographical features. They will cut out these examples and set them aside before a blank table template is distributed to each student. The table template will have 3 rows labelled as natural, managed, and constructed. Students will independently categorise the features they found in the magazines into the appropriate rows of the table. In history, students in Year 1 are learning about the similarities and differences between students' daily lives and lives during their parents' and grandparents' childhoods. Students will compare and comment on photographs and magazines to find out how features have changed over time. To conclude, students will display their completed table on their desk. Following this, there will be a gallery walk where students can examine each other's work. During this walk, students will have the opportunity to engage in discussion with their peers, explaining why they categorize certain features in specific rows and listen attentively to their classmates' perspectives.
For analysing, the learning outcome is comparing the natural, managed and constructed features of places. The elaboration for this is describing natural features, for example, hills, rivers, native vegetations, managed features, for example, farms, parks, gardens and plantation forests, and constructed features, for example, roads and buildings. The hook for this lesson is Pictionary with a twist. The students will have to guess if the teacher is drawing natural, managed, or constructed features. The main activity will be a PowerPoint with various natural, managed, and constructed features. Students will have 3 different coloured paddle pop sticks that will correspond to natural, managed, and constructed features. To conclude the lesson, the students will have a worksheet to write down whether the features are natural, managed, or constructed. This is to ensure that they have learnt the difference between each feature. One cross-curricular integration within the lesson is English. One of the content descriptors says, speaking clearly and using appropriate volume and pace. Evaluating and
When looking at communication, we linked it to the content descriptor as we will be looking at their location. So as it says, the natural, managed and constructed features of places, their location. It will be assumed that they have prior knowledge of different features as we have looked at these in previous lessons. And they will have a basic idea of how to use a map from their foundational year. So the hook for this lesson, the hook will link to the previously learnt content. So as the students have looked at natural, managed and constructed features, we will do an activity that encompasses these. At the beginning of the lesson, the students will be taken around the school. We will point out natural, managed and constructed features of the place around them. The main idea is when students arrive back to the classroom, we have a discussion about what we saw. So the teacher will demonstrate on the board how to draw a very simple map of the school by asking the students what they remember. The students will then copy this into their notebooks. The students will communicate their knowledge by colouring in the different features, different colours. So to communicate, it says to present narratives, information and findings in written forms or simple terms. To describe direction and their location. So by colouring in the different features, we recognise that they understand where the different features around the school are. So for example, the natural features we saw will be coloured in pink, whereas the managed features will be in blue. To conclude the lesson, students will be paired up or put in a group and must stay there, state their favourite constructed feature on the map that they've drawn.
Our focus lesson is on evaluating and the reflecting phase of the inquiry process. And our inquiry question is, how can we care for places?
The HASS learning outcomes, as it says in the content descriptor, the natural, managed and constructed features of places, their location and how they change and how they can be cared for. So throughout these lessons, we want to be teaching them about those things.
the cross-curricular learning areas is English and science. For English, they engage in conversation and discussions using active listening behaviours, showing interest and contributing in ideas, information and questions. And for science, people use science in their daily lives, including when caring for their environment and living things. For the engaged part of the main lesson, the lesson will start with the students sitting on the floor and being asked some questions, starting with the inquiry question. What are the different features of places? Then the students will be asked, what are natural, managed, and constructed features? And then, how can we take care of these places and the environment or surrounding? To hook the students, we will play a song about taking care of their surroundings. After the song, the students will be asked, what was the song about? Should we throw rubbish in the bin? What should we recycle?
During the explore phase of the focus lesson, students will gain a deeper understanding of how they can take care of places through engaging activities. To ensure that students remain engaged and their diverse learning needs are met, we included opportunities for children to demonstrate their knowledge through both written elements and illustrations. The class will work in pairs, with each pair instructed to select one specific location within either their school or home environment. Once the environment has been selected, students will work in their pairs and ensure that there is equal participation in conversation. They will actively listen to each other and contribute ideas to create a comprehensive list of tasks that need to be completed to maintain a clean and safe location. They will need to cater for the well-being of both people and animals that may interact with their space. Pairs will then present their list to the class, inviting feedback to determine if there is agreement, disagreement, or additional tasks that could be added to their list. Students will then receive instructions to create a visual flowchart illustrating the sequence of tasks that need to be completed. To facilitate their understanding of this activity, the teacher will provide an example, explaining when cleaning up a park, it would be better to remove rubbish before the grass is mowed. Otherwise, the lawnmower would shred the rubbish and spread it, making more mess and making it harder to clean up. The teacher has both formative and summative assessment opportunities as students document their learning through various means. These include a written list of tasks, creating visual flowcharts to depict task sequences, and participation and contribution to group discussions to communicate their ideas about caring for their chosen space. Following these activities, the teacher will lead a whole class discussion about the potential consequences if these places were not properly cared for. Students will draw conclusions, understanding that neglecting maintenance could make the space unsuitable for its intended purpose. For example, if the oval was not regularly mowed, it might become unsafe for students to play on due to long grass, causing an increase of allergies, hidden uneven surfaces, and potential dangers like snakes. Next slide. Through a Christian worldview lens, we can view the concept of caring for our environment through a creation and restoration narrative in God's big story. In the creation narrative, students learn that God wanted us to take care of the places we live in, giving us the job to look after and care for his creation. God put Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden to work in it and to take care of it. This shows that we should help protect and respect our places, as illustrated in Genesis 2, verse 15. Through this narrative, students will understand what God's original intent for creation was. Students will view and perceive their chosen locations as examples of God's intent for humans to care for his creation, as both home and school environments are typically maintained and cared for. This observation reinforces the notion that our responsibility to care for places extends to the spaces where we live and learn. We can also apply the restoration narrative of God's big story to understand our responsibility to care for the world. The restoration narrative teaches us that God wants us to help fix the damage by completing tasks to make our places healthy and safe for everyone. God wants us to take responsibility and care for the world by showing love and respect for all his creation. By making places healthy and safe, we are making sure that people in the future can enjoy the same places that we do, as reflected in Isaiah chapter 58, verse 12. Students will understand that they play a vital part in making places healthy and safe for everyone that they may interact with it. They will recognise that by completing tasks, such as the one they created in their lists, must be performed in a certain sequence to restore environments that have been broken and damaged. Completing these tasks not only benefits their generation, but also ensures that future generations can continue to enjoy spaces such as the playground, classrooms, oval, and car park, which are utilised by students, staff, and parents alike.
To conclude the lesson, students can discuss with the person next to them and answer the following questions. What was your favourite idea to care for the environment? What idea was the most effective? What is one thing you learnt about the purpose of the activity? The activity suggested have been decided upon as they link to the content descriptors for Year 1 and teach students how places, specifically their locations, can be cared for. The inquiry process used is evaluating and reflecting. The inquiry and skills require students to reflect on learning to propose how to care for places and sites that are important. Students will be asked questions to reflect on how to care for places. This reflection will then be used as students are paired up to create a list of tasks necessary to keep a location clean and safe. Students propose ideas and can evaluate with another student. Asking students what might happen if we don't keep places clean enables them to reflect on the best way to care for a location. Assume knowledge. Students would have a basic knowledge of how to look after a location and what makes it special to someone. So when building on this prior knowledge, students would go further into depth about caring for their environment. So in the foundational year, students would look at how to sustain a location, so picking up rubbish, making sure that it's being sustained. However, in Year 1, students can look at how to care for their location and actually improve the area. When looking at special locations and how to care for them, it reminds each student that we should be caring towards God's creation. So when we look at special locations, in Genesis 2 verse 15, we read that God's original plan was for Adam and Eve to care for their environment. It reminds us that we need to appreciate the home and special place that we were given by taking care of it. When looking at the science content descriptor for Year 1, it can be seen that they are learning about using science in everyday lives. This includes when caring for the environment and living things. The students can be asked how science can be used to further help the environment in a special place. To expand on this, students can volunteer to implement their ideas. So instead of just creating ideas in class, they can actually take that out of the classroom. In the pairs, students can practically take care of their environment and encourage others to do the same.